pistol squat. We won't be using Sanskrit for this. This is a pretty modern day pose, but I included it in the 300 hour because it has a lot to teach us about mobility, strength, and flexibility. We'll have Gabo show the posture, the transition. Excellent. We'll get started at the wall. As with our yogi squat in the yoga practice, one of the big challenges for most students is being able to get the heel grounded down in a squat. Let's talk a little bit about why that might be. The most basic reason for that would have to do with the tightness of the Achilles tendon, the big tendon that attaches the gastrocnemius, the calf muscle, and the soleus muscle onto the heel. So when that is tight and doesn't have a lot of stretch in it, it's going to prevent the heel from coming down. And it's going to prevent also that type of dorsiflexion which you need of the foot, so a super flexed foot basically. So if that sounds like you, some areas to focus on is stretching the sole of your foot as well as the Achilles tendon. One of the drills we're going to start with is called a wall tap. And I'll have Gabo just demo one of them here, and then I'll want to talk about this a little bit. So you'll notice his knee goes way past his ankle. That's great. You can come on back. And I just want to unpack this myth you've probably heard a lot in the yoga classroom about always having your knee stacked on top of your ankle and that we shouldn't allow the knee to go forward. In truth, that's a bit of a myth. But I like to kind of think about, well, why did that show up in the classroom and why are people teaching that? It's not that it's wrong, but that's really designed to help prevent people that might have any kind of knee injury in which going that far forward might further impact their injury. So it became kind of this generalized thing that we started to really emphasize on in our standing postures and such. But if you think about it, any kind of, like, will you just take yogi squat, just bend your knees down? There's no way to come into a pose like yogi squat without the knees passing the ankle at some point. There's no way to do functional movement such as running without the knee passing the ankle. So in fact, being able to have this healthy range of motion where the knee does pass the ankle would be a great thing for you to develop. So we'll start here with doing what's called wall taps. Gabo will face the wall. He's about a hand's distance or an iPhone's distance away from the wall there. Good. And his back foot is just 1 or 2 feet away from the front, and he begins to bend, and he leans forward, taps his knee, and he'll continue on. Of course, if you can't tap your knee yet to the wall, just go ahead and inch in a little bit closer. You can have your hands there to anchor yourself at the wall. And you could do some reps of these, maybe 10 to 23 sets. And he's basically just building up the mobility through the ankle joint. And if we were to flip him upside down, we could see then that his foot is in true dorsiflexion. Good. Beautiful. Thank you. All right, so we'll head back to the center of the room and continue to work on our pistol squat. So building up this pose, we'll talk a little bit about the strength in the legs. So if you're lacking any kind of strength in the quadricep muscles or the hip flexors of the straight leg, this is going to be a challenging posture, right? So we're breaking down some modifications that you can use to help build strength in this pose. So if you have a chair or an ottoman or something at home, you can use that. We'll have Gabo turn away from his prop. And you're basically going to sit all the way down. So you'll take your pistol squat. He flexes his straight leg out in front of him. He sits down, and then he drives down through the standing foot to come up. And we'll see that one more time. Goes all the way down. Notice his weight has to shift back through the hips, and then he has to lean forward to push himself up. So a couple of things we want to talk about in terms of alignment. I'll have you face that way again, is watch his knee. So we have a tendency when we bend, when we lack the strength, for the knee to go inward. So imagine you're pressing the knee to the outside. That way both equally using your adductors and your outer external hip rotators to help stabilize the leg. And the other thing I'll have you do one more time, you can switch sides if you want, is let's just focus a little bit more on the balance of what has to happen. He can't just sit straight down. Notice his shoulders come forward, his hips go back. He sits down to come up. He has to shift that weight forward and then really drive down through the sole of the standing leg to come up. So again, in order to build strength into these postures, it's more than just doing the pose and practicing them. I really highly recommend with strength building to do reps and sets. So do about 10 reps of those, rest for about 30 seconds, and then do that for 3 sets to really begin to build strength. Now, you can, of course, as you start to build strength, make your prop or whatever you're using be lower and lower. You could use stairs at home, prop up blocks, whatever you want to use. Another thing that you could do right in the classroom if you were teaching this pose in the classroom is teach it through our chair pose. So Gabo, I'll just have you come more to the front of the mat so you have space. So you could take chair pose and then extend the right knee straight so that the leg is straight. And he's kind of in like a half pistol squat. And you could pulse this a little bit by standing up and then going down. And then, of course, if you wanted to cue some of the students all the way down, you have that option. But that way, some of the students have something to do if they're not able to go all the way down. So we've talked about mobility, strength. Let's move on to flexibility and also strength of that extended straight leg, extended through the knee joint. So if you lack the flexibility or the strength to lift and flex the leg all the way forward, it will be hard to bend all the way down because your foot will basically hit the floor. So you just want to elevate the posture. So we'll have Gabo demo here, and if you could even show what that student might look like who can't flex the leg all the way. So if your leg more mirrors something like this, now he has all that clearance as he bends down, he can really work the standing leg. We'll take that again and push back up. Excellent. And come on down. Great. So we'll show a couple more things here with our pistol squat. So you can also use blocks to help assist, and I really enjoy using blocks, especially when I'm teaching in a real class because more people can access this pose. So we'll have Gabo prep here with the blocks. The blocks are basically just raising the floor and providing you some stability, and you move them around as needed so he can use them to bear weight, and then also he can push down through his arms to help lift up. Great job. He comes down, catches the blocks, and then he has those blocks to push down into and come back up. Great. So now we'll show you actually from the floor so that instead of, we've been working the transition into our pistol squat a lot, but what about just coming into the pose itself? So we'll have Gabo sit. He can start with one leg straight. He'll reach his arms forward, and this is nice because it shows you that weight shift you have to take. He pulls his belly in, lifts his hips, and then sits back down. And he can continue to do these little rocks up, push down through the sole of the grounded foot. Good. Beautiful. And then we have a nice rocking thing where we can use the momentum of our body to roll up into the pose. So Gabo will show that here. And if the blocks were useful for either one of these, you could also use them here. This is great, really great core strengthening exercise too. Excellent. Beautiful. So last little hack we'll give you is one where if you are working at home and you have a kind of banister or a pole, that's another really nice thing where you can grab onto. I'm basically going to be Gabo's pole here for him to help support. You can have a friend at home do this as well. So I'll just have one arm straight and I'm making sure that I'm not moving so he can really pull into me. Of course, he doesn't need me, so he's not really using me, but you get the idea here. Push up. Excellent. All right, I hope that you found a lot of tips and useful ways that you can start finding your pistol squat. We'll see you in the next video.